Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Iridikron and the Primal Incarnates. We are talking Abberus, the Shadowed Crucible. We are talking the rise, and probably quite soon the fall, of the Sundered Flame. And we are talking Visage Forms. Oh, we are talking Visage Forms. Because today, Internet, we are looking at the new cinematic that launched with the reveal of Embers of Neltharion, Secrets of the Reach. And it's fair to say, I'm pretty excited about this one because there are some really interesting things to talk about here, but also because, yay, 10.1 adding to the Dragonflight content coming thick and fast as hoped for, and also because, you know, it just feels like we haven't done many of these videos recently, doesn't it? And they are one of my favorite videos to do. So, first of all, usual word of warning, this is not a reaction video, okay? If you haven't seen this cinematic yet, there's a link in the description. This will be a really bad way of watching it because we're going to be stopping and starting, skipping bits, talking all over the top, and generally just having a deep divey, nerdy kind of time. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, join us as we ask, what lessons have the team learned from Shadowlands when it comes to telling this story? What is Iridikron's plan? Where do the Sundered Flame's real loyalties lie? And what do those Visage Forms mean? Also, why the Primal Incarnate's so legit cool. As we embark on our deep dive cinematic analysis of Secrets of the Reach. Okay, go, 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 go.
The storm is receding. The Reach is ours once again.
Our establishing shot is of the Froststone Vault, a location which has already played a significant part in the events of Dragonflight so far, it being an important part of the Drakthis starting experience, as it is where Raszageth is released into the world from her underground prison and absolutely demolishes Rathian. And yeah, I know, we'd all like to demolish Rathian, but try and concentrate, okay? We've only just started. Before that, we see it depicted in the Legacy cinematics as the place where Neltharion lords over his Drakthis super soldiers with his mind control glove, and actually, this is the very spot where the Earth Warder fell to Old God's corruption during the battle with Raszageth. So it's a significant place in the history of Azeroth, but especially for the Drakthir. So it's little wonder that Sakareth and a couple of the other Sundered Flame have made their way back here the minute they are able. In the story, of course, the Forbidden Reach has been inaccessible since those events of the Drakthir starting experience, surrounded by Raszageth's impassable storm, but with her out of the picture, thanks to the dragon riding appearance, Razzie, the way has now cleared. As Sakareth says,
The storm is receding.
Patch 10.0 was jam-packed with storm imagery. It felt like every character you met in the leveling quest was talking about storms or gathering clouds of some description. If the opening of Dragonflight had an overall theme aesthetically, then that was it, all linking to the powers of the main baddie of that patch. You'll see that 10.1 takes a shift into an altogether different element. One thing I really like about how the Sundered Flame are portrayed here, and I don't even know if it's intentional, but the fact that there's only 3 of them makes them look ragtag as heck. When Sakareth says,
The Reach is ours once again.
It's like, yeah mate, until literally anyone else turns up, which is exactly what happens.
Take cover.
The second they hear some dragons coming, which, let's be honest, can't really be a massive surprise, seeing as they are on the Dragon Isles and everything, they're like, okay everyone, run away, which is kind of the story of the Sundered Flame so far, really. We're going to talk more about the Sundered Flame later, don't worry. I love the Primalist approach to the Vault. The last time we saw this place, Raszageth owned it. Rathers was fleeing for his life. There's not the same sense of triumph here with the big 3, but they aren't skulking. There is a real ominous power and menace to the deep bass wing flaps as they pass overhead, a sense that they have no fear of anything.
Who are they, Sakareth? Is it the aspects?
No. Raszageth's kin.
Unlike the mighty Sundered Flame forces, whose takeover is now well and truly on hold as they hide under the canopy of trees, helplessly watching as beings way above them on the food chain breeze in, as insignificant to the Incarnates as bugs in the undergrowth as we walk through the park. And I'm not entirely certain who this blue dude Desrin is. I don't remember him cropping up before, but he has my favorite delivery of any line in the entire expansion so far.
Is it the aspects?
I just really love it. The actor nails it. The animators nail the expression as he says it. 10 out of 10, no notes. But of course, our Sundered Flame sidekick being very scared of the aspects, you're supposed to be smashing the aspects, Des, is there to show how focused and single-minded Sarkareth is. By contrast, while Desran cowers, Saki's eyes narrow in grim determination. I love the way he hits the word kin. An important and complicated concept for the Sundered Flame, who have purposely set themselves in opposition to their own Drakthir and Aspect kin to carve their own legacy. That's their whole deal. And the way the Incarnates are reflected in his eye here isn't just a cool effect, it kind of establishes in the back of our mind that as the cinematic follows Iridikron and company from here on out, Sarkareth is watching. Whatever we, the audience, see, to some extent, he does too, which is important to remember for the end. I love the way you get the slight camera wobble from the sheer size of the Incarnates as they fly past here. In dragon form, they really are forces of nature. And this entrance to the Forbidden Reach is kind of like the anti-version of the Dragonflight trailer, where the Dragonflights return home to the Dragon Isles. Joyous, triumphant, daylight breaking through the clouds. Now here come dragons of a very different sort, with very different intentions. And another very cool callback to the very beginning of the expansion, the first shot of the first Legacy cinematic, where Nosdormu's dragon shadow transforms into the silhouette of his visage form. Nosdormu entered this vault to discover the Drakthir, really. This time it's the Incarnates in front of the vault entrance, taking the place of the aspect that we first saw there, signifying maybe a shift in the balance of power towards the baddies. And then, okay, it's time.
The last echoes of her storm are fading. She is truly gone.
We should be devouring her murderers' hearts.
Do not underestimate them.
We get these wonderful, ridiculous, incarnate visage forms. This is the highlight of the entire cinematic. Their big, beautiful bodies on the thumbnail are the reason many of you are probably watching this video, and these are basically brilliant. The aspects and the dragons of their flight, as we know, take a magical visage form which makes them look like one of the mortal races so that they can hang out and date, and so we can see when they have quest markers above their heads, because all that stuff is really hard in dragon form. The Primal Incarnates, you will notice, have absolutely no intention of socializing with mortals, and so when they need to get through doors, they take the form of non-specific, spiky, scary-ass motherfuckers, and why not? But the joke is on them, because I still want to date them. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the looks that these three are rocking here, please? Vyranoth, the Frozen Heart, is a terrifying, expressionless Jack Frost banshee with her wing wrapped around her body like a gown, and almost like icicle ammo belt thing. And let's be real, she looks like the Winter Queen if the Winter Queen was an emotionless, dead-eyed monster. So yeah, she looks just like the Winter Queen then. Fyrakk, who it seems we are going to be seeing a lot of in 10.1, is a disturbingly proportioned insectoid type thing with mandible jaws. And also he's the best, by the way. Any other opinion is just wrong. Whereas Iridikron is basically just if a clay golem, but Doctor Doom. And you can tell he's the baddest because his outfit is the most elaborate, with his own dragon spine draped over his shoulder like an armored sash. Makes you sad that we got cheated out of seeing Razageth's form, doesn't it? My money would be on a Mad Max Featherpunk getup, and it would have slayed. And it's funny, isn't it? Because I called these forms non-specific, and it is easy to imagine that these forms the Incarnates have taken are just dangerous, intimidating shapes that they dreamed up kind of randomly, which would totally work, but the aspects and dragonflights took forms of beings they recognized, lived with, even admired, and you kind of think, what if the Primal Incarnates actually did that too? What if Vyranoth looks so much like the Winter Queen because Vyranoth has seen the Winter Queen somewhere before? What if the fact that Iridikron doesn't look unlike a beefy Maldraxxus dude isn't a complete coincidence either? What if the king, who we stan, Fyrakk, I always want to call him Fyrakk because, you know, frying. Looks so insectoid because in his spare time he hangs out with a being that likes to surround themselves with insect-type things for some reason. I'm always going to have that thought at the back of my mind. But I also love how Fyrakk wears the scars of the Aspect Wars on his face. This is a visage form, it's magic, he can look like however he likes, chooses to show those scars. That is a design choice because he is the best. Pretty sure he's voiced by Matt Mercer too, but I could talk about how brilliant Fyrakk is all day. Let's move on. This first exchange between the three does lots to immediately, in the space of like 3 lines, signal who these characters are and the differences between them. And it's such efficient signaling of personality here. It's done really well. Already, we know that Vyranoth is measured and precise, or, you know, cool. Fyrakk's movements are jittery and exaggerated, and he talks about devouring our hearts. So we know that he is impulsive and hot-headed. And Iridikron is centered and strong and the clear leader. And yes, they are tropes, but this is an example of tropes being used correctly, which is to efficiently impart character information in a very short space of time. And it works. I'm not exaggerating when I say there is more enjoyable character building in this exchange than the jailer got in the whole of Shadowlands. And that despite Iridikron suffering from big boomy voice wow baddie syndrome in the same way Nipples and N'Zoth and Argus and Archimonde and Garrosh and Deathwing, and you get the idea. I think having 2 very different wingmen helps here because they give us something else along with the standard WoW baddie type. This shot of them entering the vault is nuts. It's a really awkward angle, basically upside down, to add to the sense that this situation has been turned on its head. The Incarnates are upsetting the order of things by being here and by doing what they're doing.
While the Aspect's power has waned, their forces grow stronger, and we must even the scales.
Excellent even the scales pun there, definitely. But this is actually some important exposition because Iridikron is telling us their motivation here. Even though they have the upper hand right now over the Aspects themselves, the Incarnates are severely lacking in forces, in troops. The Primalists have been decimated over the course of the opening patch and raid, and Alexstrasza has total badass babes for life like us to call on. So the main immediate motivation for Iridikron's actions is to even that out somehow, to get on a more equal footing, to secure new troops of their own, or something as good as whatever that could be. We get a reminder that Iridikron is an Earth Incarnate as he blows the way into the vault wide open, and the evil 3 strut inside like they're in a Tarantino movie. There's an interesting line from Vyranoth here.
They kept so many secrets. From us. And even from each other.
Because it's meant to be pretty meaningful and sage and judgmental, and it is. The Aspects did treat the Incarnates pretty badly. By their own admission, you can't help but feel that if they had treated their primal brethren more as equals from the start, a lot of this hassle could have been avoided. And yes, it is kind of damning that even before his fall, Neltharion was keeping so many secrets from the others. And that's not a retcon, by the way, that has always been the case. As Ashura points out on Twitter, the Demon's Soul novel establishes that Neltharion kept a whole bunch of things from the other Planeteers, but there's what's called a dramatic irony here too, because we, the audience, know something Vyranoth doesn't. We remember what Alexstrasza said about Iridikron, that he is also keeping the truth of some of the darker deals he's made from Vyranoth and Fyrakk. If Alexstrasza was here to hear Vyranoth say this, she might reply, why yes, Frozenheart, we Aspects do have secrets between us, big, dangerous ones, but it seems in that respect at least, we are not so different, you and I. As they enter, of course, the vault defenses activate, and of course, this is Dragonflight, so that obviously means swirlies on the floor that you have to stay out of. But if we were just given a quick and easy outline of the Incarnate's characters through dialogue, what follows is the same again, but with combat. Because not only do they dispatch of Neltharion's auto-rock bouncers incredibly casually, but very much in character too. So Vyranoth actually pauses for a beat before a mere flick of the wrist incapacitates one of the Stony Boys in one precise movement. And if her model didn't remind you of the Winter Queen before, well, in this shot, it's impossible to miss, isn't it? Fyrakk melts the sentry down with his grip and really enjoys the liquid magma flowing through his fingers and over his arm. He takes genuine pleasure in this act of destruction. And just in case you'd forgotten that Iridikron is the most powerful, he takes out 7 like it's no big thing. I think it's probably worth pointing out that we have now in this cinematic seen him use his powers to interact with the Earth twice, and each time he just completely blows the rock apart. There's a feeling to me that his power is of the Earth, but it's not really at one with it. It's actually incredibly destructive. There's no respect for the Earth that I can see. He just annihilates it. Okay, do you remember at the beginning where I said we might be skipping some bits? The next 45 seconds is basically just Iridikron kindly laying out the fact that there is a secret laboratory under the Earth, and that's where they want to go. In this vault, there's a key which is going to show them the way. There it is. It's the key.
Abberus. His hidden laboratory.
One last secret.
Interestingly, when Evie and I watched this cinematic the first time, we both thought Vyranoth referred to the laboratory as Avarice, which of course means greed, but then we learned later in the patch reveal that it's actually Abberus, obviously derived from aberration. Like, there is some sketchy experimental shit in that laboratory, and it's funny how both words fit pretty well as names, to be honest. But anyway, there's your MacGuffin, there's your exposition. The really important bit story-wise is when the Incarnates leave the vault again.
The location of Abberus must lie within this vessel. I will decipher its knowledge.
What use are Neltharion's twisted experiments to us?
The laboratory itself is of no consequence, but the molten fire that powers it, that we can use.
So again, hope you're paying attention here, because this is what is happening in patch 10.1 leading up to the raid. Vyranoth is off deciphering the stone key thing to find out exactly where Abberus is. It seems likely that her succeeding in this is what will open up Varalek Cavern and get the patch started. Fyrakk, obviously, isn't too fussed about all this nonsense and just wants to devour some hearts, king. And Iridikron's interest in the lab is mainly for the molten fire that works as its power source. 10.1 is the fire patch, don't forget. I've got a feeling that that last bit in particular is going to be important information at the end of the Abberus raid. It might be easy to forget in the meantime, because apart from Fyrakk flying around doing big open world assaults on the Dragon Isles, I've got a feeling we won't see much of the other 2 Incarnates until then, because Sarkareth and the Sundered Flame will be taking much of the spotlight until then.
Keep eyes on them, Desrin. Whatever remains of Neltharion's legacy belongs to us.
Yes, they were watching and listening in the whole time, do you remember? And now they know the Incarnate's plan, and Sarkareth clearly plans to get in ahead of them and claim the power of Abberus for their cause. Sarkareth is, we think at the moment, until the PTR with the Dungeon Journal comes out in about 5 minutes, the final boss of the raid, and the Sundered Flame really served to offer another take on one of the main themes of this expansion, that of legacy and forging your own path. Sarkareth kind of works as a bit of a foil to Scale Commander Emberthal in her approach, whereas she feels the weight of the sins of her fathers, as it were, and is working really hard to find a way out of Neltharion's shadow and create a future for the Drakthir. Sarkareth sees his legacy as something to be claimed, a birthright, an entitlement almost. And the title and the setting of this patch is all about that too. Embers of Neltharion. Abberus being the last remains of his life's work, what he would have seen as his legacy, but of course his real legacy is the hurt and the chaos that he caused to his own kin, his closest friends, the other aspects. It's his abandonment of what could easily be described as his children, the Drakthir. His most lasting work is the powerlessness that they still feel because of his actions, the
Fissures in their hearts,
as Iridikron puts it. Stephen Noosa said in a recent interview that 10.1 would resolve the story of the Black Dragonflight, and that means Rathian and Sibelian and Abyssian, but it also means the Drakthir. It means the Sundered Flame. It means the other aspects and everyone that has been harmed by Neltharion's actions. It means finally putting the legacy of Deathwing to bed, letting those fading embers finally die out. People got very excited, or, angry, at the name Embers of Neltharion, Neltharion because they took that as a clue that maybe Neltharion or Deathwing would be coming back in some way. A narrative device we are so used to seeing in World of Warcraft, and fantasy like it, I guess. But I think it's clear that the meaning behind Embers of Neltharion is not to welcome him back, it's to say goodbye. And as the Incarnates fly back into the night, again almost recreating that scene where the dragons arrive at the Dragon Isles in the cinematic trailer in reverse, physically and symbolically, I think there's probably a meaning to the order in which that they are flying here. Fyrakk, Vyranoth, Iridikron. I'm not a betting man, but if I had to put a couple of quid on that being the order in which we face this Incarnates, if Embers of Neltharion is indeed the fire patch, then that mega dungeon scheduled for 10.15 seems like a good place to battle Fyrakk and get his appearance for your renewed Proto-Drake. 10.2 being the air patch, perhaps? I don't think there's any doubt now that Iridikron is the main antagonist of this expansion, even if he doesn't end up being the final boss. Whatever his plans and true purpose turn out to be, looks like it will shape the latter part of the entire expansion. Overall, there is definitely some really interesting stuff in this cinematic with regards to the Sundered Flame, but the big takeaway from Secrets of the Reach is the work it does on the characters of the Incarnates. Visually and dynamics-wise, this is about as good an establishing job as a 3-minute WoW cinematic can possibly do, and it will be remembered as, well, the first time we saw those incredible visage forms, obviously, but also the moment Dragonflight cemented itself some proper, memorable, enjoyable big bads. And you know, that's pretty cool. I really want to see one of the aspects, probably Rathian, fight one of the Incarnates in a battle which sees them switching between dragon form and visage form, like bite, shapeshift, punch, kick, shapeshift, breathe fire, shapeshift, punch again. And I would love to see in the future maybe that group dynamic that the Incarnates have, how it would be tested and what conflict could come from it. But that's all for another day. For now, print off that image, stick it on your bedroom wall, and don't forget to stam, because there's a new baddie gang in town and they are sick. But what do you think? Are the Incarnates big goofy fun, or do they miss the mark for you? Is Iridikron just the jailer but with a shirt on? When will we see the old gods appear this expansion? Will we see them? Or is it in fact true that there are in fact no old gods in Dragonflight? What do you think of Abberus as a location? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, seriously, thank you. Without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Nobble. No, my name is Taliesin, from me and Evitel and Nyrin and Penny and Fyrakk, because he's the best. Cheerio.